For those who have sensed that reality is not as solid as it seems. For you who, without knowing how, already knew that this book existed. This is not just another book. This is the book that chose you when you didn't even know you needed it. It was not written to entertain you, nor to offer you empty formulas, nor to add you to the thousands of voices that repeat the same thing with different words. This book was written to give you back the memory of your power, the memory of your center, the memory of what your soul came here to do. If you hold it in your hands or in front of your eyes, it is not a coincidence. It is an answer. Because you asked. Because you asked. Not out loud, not on social media. You asked in your empty nights, in your repeated days, in your deepest silences. You asked when you said, "Why does this keep repeating? Why, if I try, does it not happen? Why do I feel like there is something else, something I have not been told?" This book doesn't just answer. This book reveals. Here you will understand why your thoughts weren't enough, why your decrees sometimes failed, why your vibration was always stronger than your words. Here you will be shown that reality is not what you see, but what you project. The world does not happen in front of you, but from you. Your soul did not come to beg the universe, but to remember that it is the one who organizes it. You will not read theories. You will live revelations. You will not repeat formulas. You will learn to sustain frequencies. You will not ask for answers. You will remember that you are the question the universe was waiting to answer. Each chapter will open a portal within you. Each word has been placed as a vibrational key. It doesn't matter how much you know. It doesn't matter if you have read a lot or if you are just starting out. What matters is that you feel how this book speaks to you without asking permission. How it enters, how it touches, how it shakes. This is not a book to understand. It is a book to awaken. Here you will find yourself, but without the layers. Here the false language will be broken and the true pulse will be revealed. Here you will remember that you don't attract, you project. You do not think, you emit. You do not ask, you command. This is the book you were not looking for, but always expected. This is the text that answers what you never knew how to ask. This is the exact moment when, without realizing it, your soul has just opened the right door. Read it, not to learn. Read it to remember. Not to believe, read it to come back. And once you start, you won't be able to go back to sleep. Because it's no longer about having power. It's about becoming it. The hidden language of energy. Manipulate reality from your sacred center. Episode 1. When the mind draws realities. For you, who have once felt there is something more. For those who have sensed, without proof, that reality is not as firm or as predictable as it seems. For you, who without knowing how, already knew this book existed. This is not just any book. It is the book that chose you long before you knew you needed it. It was not written to entertain, nor to offer empty answers, nor to add another voice to that chorus that repeats the same thing with different words. This book was created to help you remember. Remember your power. Remember your center. Remember the reason your soul decided to come to this life. If you hold it in your hands today or are reading it before your eyes, it is no coincidence. It is an answer. Because you asked. Maybe not out loud or on social media, but you asked during your silent nights, during your days that felt the same. In those moments of pause where the soul whispers louder. You asked when you said, "Why does this keep happening? Why, if I try, doesn't it happen the way I expect? Why do I feel like there's something more, something no one has told me?" This book doesn't just answer. This book reveals. Here you will understand why your thoughts weren't enough, why your affirmations sometimes didn't work, why your energy has always been more powerful than your words. You will discover that reality is not what you observe, but what you radiate. That the world doesn't unfold before you, but from you. Your soul didn't come to beg the universe. It came to remember that it itself organizes it. You won't read theories. You will experience revelations. You will not repeat formulas. You will learn to sustain vibrations. You will not seek external answers. You will remember that you yourself are the question that the universe has been waiting to answer. Each chapter will open a door within you. Each word has been placed like a vibratory key. It doesn't matter how much you know, whether you have read a lot or are just starting out. The only thing that matters is that you feel how this book speaks to you, without asking permission, how it enters, how it touches you, how it transforms you. This is not a book to understand. It is a book to awaken. Here you will find yourself, without masks or disguises. Here borrowed languages will break, and the authentic pulse will be revealed. You will remember that you do not attract, but project, that you not only think, you also emit, that you are not here to ask, but to command from your essence. This is the book you weren't looking for, but that deep down you always hoped for. This is the text that answers, that thing you never knew how to ask. This is the precise moment in which, without knowing it, your soul has opened the right door. Read it, not to learn, but to remember. Read it, not to search, but to return to yourself. And when you begin, you won't be able to sleep the same, because it's no longer about having power. It's about being that power. The invisible language of energy will teach you how to shape reality from your most sacred center. That which you avoid naming subdues you. For those who have felt there is something more. For those who have sensed, without concrete proof, that reality is not as firm or as simple as it seems. For you, who without knowing how, already knew this book existed. This is not just any book. This is the book that chose you, even before you knew you needed it. It was not written to entertain, nor to give you empty formulas, nor to join the chorus of voices repeating the same thing with different embellishments. This book was created to give you back something essential, the memory of your power, the memory of your center, the memory of what your soul came to accomplish in this existence. If you hold it in your hands or before your eyes today, it is no coincidence. It is an answer, because you asked, not out loud, not on social media. You asked during your lonely nights, during those days that felt repeated in your deepest silences. You asked when you said, why does this keep repeating itself? Why, if I try with all my might, doesn't it happen? Why do I feel like there's something more, something no one has told me? This book doesn't just answer. This book reveals. Here you will understand why your thoughts weren't enough. Why, sometimes, your affirmations bore no fruit. Why your vibration was, and always will be, more powerful than your words. Here you will discover that reality is not what you observe, but what you project. That the world doesn't unfold before you, but from you. That your soul didn't come to beg the universe, but to remember that it is part of its own design. You will not read theories. You will experience revelations. You will not repeat formulas. You will learn to hold frequencies. You will not search for answers. You will remember that you are the question the universe was waiting for. Each chapter will open a portal within you. Each word has been placed like a vibrating key. It doesn't matter how much you know. It doesn't matter if you've read a lot or if you're just starting out. What matters is how you feel this book speak to you without asking permission. How it enters. How it touches. How it shakes. This is not a book to understand. It is a book to awaken. Here you will find yourself, without masks or disguises. Here superficial language will crumble and the most intimate truth will emerge. Here you will remember that you don't attract, you project, that you don't just think, you emit, that you don't beg, you command. This is the book you weren't looking for, but always hoped for. The text that answers what you never knew how to ask. This is the precise moment when, without realizing it, your soul has just opened the right door. Read it not to learn. Read it to remember. Read it to return to yourself. And once you begin, you will never again sleep in unconsciousness. Because it's no longer about having power. It's about becoming it. The invisible language of energy transforms reality from your sacred center. Episode 2. Your body as a sanctuary of vital energy. Nodes, gates, and internal resonance. Most people inhabit their bodies like someone who wanders through a borrowed house, without knowing its rooms, without understanding the symbols engraved on its walls, without knowing that every crack has something to say. They live trapped between stimulus and reaction, unaware that what they call the body is not a simple passive receptacle, but an altar of resonance. The body is not only the result of what you think, but the medium through which you think toward the world. It is the channel where vibration is condensed, stored, and manifested. From Taoist wisdom to the ancient cosmologies of the Caucasian peoples, the human body has been seen as a microcosmic representation of the universe. The lower Tiantian, according to the classic texts of the Nei Jing II, was not only a vital center, but the crucible where spirit and blood merge. In their esoteric schools, they taught that the body possesses 9 gates of light, each associated with a universal virtue. When these virtues were forgotten, the gates were sealed and the energy lost harmony. The body then becomes an energetic score. Every organ, every joint, every fascia vibrates with a unique frequency. But the challenge lies not in ignoring physiological terms, but in having forgotten that the body listens to your thoughts. Each repeated thought generates a vibratory charge that anchors itself somewhere in the body. Constant fear often tenses the abdominal area, where ancient survival memories reside. Prolonged sadness weighs on the chest, where not only the physical heart resides, but also the body's most powerful electromagnetic field, a gate. What is not expressed in words is absorbed by the skin. What is not mourned is encapsulated in the muscles. What is not said sleeps in the throat, and what is ignored governs from within. In the Threshold writing, an enigmatic text of Etruscan origin, of which only fragments carved in obsidian remain, the body is described as a map of the descending soul, but also as the stairway of return. It mentions the nodi interiori, internal points where energy intertwines will, memory, and desire. Each node can be active, sealed, or distorted, not because of what we eat or external illnesses, but because of the emotional resonance we sustain. For example, when guilt settles and persists, it doesn't float in the air. It adheres to the tissues, encapsulates the organs, and transforms into a dull vibration that interferes with our decisions. It's not a metaphor, it's a frequency. The body, as an energetic field, reproduces what you haven't healed. If you don't engage in sincere dialogue with it, it acts like a blind mirror, repeating pain, cycles, and blockages. But if you recognize it as a temple, it responds with ancestral wisdom. In late Gnosticism, particularly in its Syrian branch influenced by Bardesanes, it was taught that the body was the final garment of the still vibrant spirit. Each layer of flesh was assigned a harmonic note. In his text on the regions of the soul, now lost, except for the commentaries of Ephraim of Nazib, it is stated, "He who knows the note of his right side will know how to heal the left side of his destiny." An enigmatic statement, yes, but profoundly consistent with what was taught in ancient shamanic schools. Health is not only chemical balance, but vibrational harmony. Therefore, the body cannot be guided solely by the mind if there is no internal resonance. And this resonance is achieved not with effort, but with recognition. That is, ceasing to treat the body as a servant and beginning to inhabit it as an oracle. The late Upanishads, especially the Chandogya Upanishad, speak of the city of the heart, a region where all the body's energetic pathways converge. In that center, not physical, but vibratory, lies what they called the resonant Atman, the silent self that doesn't express itself in words, but modulates everything that happens. Who inhabits that point? They said that whoever does so begins to speak with their body. And when body and spirit are reconciled, the energy flows without distortion. But how do you access that temple? How do you open the doors sealed by years of automatism? Not with theories, not with forced meditation. You access it with embodied presence. Your body doesn't need decrees recited like empty mantras. It needs you to be with it, to listen to it, to restore its dignity as an interlocutor. To do this, you must re-inhabit it with a sense of ritual. Walk not as one who is going somewhere, but as one who feels the earth resonate beneath their feet. Breathe not as one who survives, but as one who ignites their inner flame with each inhalation. Touch your skin not as a routine, but as someone who caresses a sacred, tuned instrument. The sea is a spark of hidden order in matter. According to the hidden Gospels, nothing visible truly comes from the visible. This is affirmed not only by spiritual sages, but also by scientists who today explore the most subtle limits of matter. But this is not a new truth. It is as old as the first breath, only it was hidden, disguised as superstition or heresy. Yet it was always there, on the margins of history, in forbidden manuscripts, on the lips of those who didn't need proof, because they knew that certainty is not born from a result. Certainty creates it. Certainty, or authentic faith, is not a simple passive longing or a passing emotion. It is a vibrational frequency that acts from the invisible, a conviction without a tangible object, held with such intensity that it reorganizes matter, as fire transforms gold. Thus the invisible is shaped. This idea appears in a fragment of the Gospel of Philip, one of the Gnostic texts found at Nag Hammadi in 1945, barely translated faithfully in recent decades. What many don't know is that Philip didn't use the word faith as many understand it today. In its original language, Coptic, the term is pistis, which doesn't mean belief, but rather inner sustenance, a force that maintains its form even when the environment contradicts it. Faith, in this sense, is not future hope, but vibratory presence. It's not about believing something will happen, but about living as if it were already happening, even if it hasn't yet manifested. Because at the quantum level, the present is not a straight line, but a field of infinite coexisting possibilities. And our vibration is what chooses which of them will collapse into experience. Another apocryphal text, the Gospel of the Egyptians, contains a revealing passage. Blessed is he who has closed his eyes to the world without extinguishing his inner vision, for he will see what is not seen, and his body will obey the invisible. This message speaks to us of what we would call today vibrational alignment. He who sees with faith is not fantasizing. He is connecting with an order not yet materialized. He is dialoguing with the invisible structure before it becomes solid. That is why, in the also marginalized Gospel of Thomas, Jesus does not say, "Believe in me," but rather, "When you make the two one, then you will enter the kingdom." That is, when your interior and your exterior vibrate in harmony, the invisible cannot help but reveal itself. True faith is coherence between what is held in the soul and what is manifested in the world. It is not praying, it is incarnating. And why isn't this taught openly? Because authentic faith does not depend on any authority or dogma. It is not bought, imposed, or inherited. It is cultivated in silence. And that is uncomfortable for systems that require intermediaries between the human being and their inner power. In the book of Baruch, excluded from religious canons, a dialogue between the soul and the body is narrated. In one of its passages, we read, "Show me evidence of what you hope for," said the body. "Evidence is what is already vibrated in you, even if you do not understand it," replied the soul. This is a poetic way of expressing principles that quantum physics is only just beginning to understand. The observer collapses the wave function. But to do so, they must trust their inner vision more than what their eyes show. They must sustain the invisible vibration, even when tangible reality seems to deny it. The science of faith does not require degrees, but presence. Because faith is not produced, it is sustained. It is not conquered, it is embodied. And to embody it, one must relinquish the need to see results before acting. One must let go of the logic that demands certainty before moving forward. A sage from the ancient Templar movement, Hugo de Payens, wrote in a manuscript never approved by the Church, "He who believes after seeing sustains only the echo, but he who vibrates before the form forges the world from its core." Hugo was marginalized by these ideas about creative consciousness, but his message persists, hidden in codices sealed by time. You can't create with faith if your internal field is fragmented. The quantum field responds to everything, but it only stabilizes with that which is held coherently. Doubt isn't just an emotion, it's an energetic distortion. It's a wind that modifies the pattern you're trying to emit. Faith, on the other hand, is a vibrant, firm, and constant geometry. Today you can choose, even if it hasn't happened yet, not as a wish, but as a seed, no matter how distant it may seem. Breathe, close your eyes. Don't imagine the outcome, imagine the sensation. How does it feel to be the person who already lives what you long for? What posture does your body adopt? What tone of voice is yours? Remain in that state for at least 5 minutes. And during the day, every time you remember that wish, don't ask for it. Live it. Vibrate as one who already holds it. That is the ancient science, the silent word, the forgotten practice. Faith isn't praying for something to happen. It's living as one who has already received it. Because the quantum field doesn't respond to hope. It responds to identity. Episode 3. Doubt is a reverse spell, confusing reality with illusion. According to the hidden Gospels, nothing visible is born from the visible. This is affirmed not only by spiritual sages, but also by physicists who today explore the limits of matter. But this is not a new truth. It is as old as breath, although it was hidden under names like mysticism, superstition, or heresy. Yet it always persisted in the margins, in burned manuscripts, on the lips of those who did not ask for proof because they knew that certainty does not arise after manifestation, but rather creates it. It is a burning feeling, an active hope, a vibratory command, an objectless certainty, held with such intensity that it pierces the layers of the quantum field and forces it to organize itself around its form, as fire purifies gold. This idea appears in the Gospel of Philip, one of the Gnostic texts discovered at Nag Hammadi in 1945, but only faithfully translated in recent decades. What many ignore is that Philip did not use the word belief as we understand it today. The original term in Coptic is pistis, which does not mean passive faith, but rather internal sustenance, an energy that maintains its structure even when everything outside denies it. In this sense, it is not about waiting for something to happen, but rather about living as if it were already happening, even if your eyes cannot see it. Because on the quantum plane, the present is not a line, but a field of simultaneous possibilities, and your vibration chooses among them. The Gospel of the Egyptians, another forbidden text, contains a revealing passage. Blessed is he who closes his eyes to the world without turning off his vision, for he will see the invisible, and his body will obey what is not shown. This describes what we would call vibrational alignment today. Those who see, with this certainty, don't hallucinate, but rather access a level of order not yet materialized, dialoguing with the invisible pattern before it becomes tangible. That's why Jesus, in the excluded Gospel of Thomas, doesn't say believe in me, but rather, when you make the two one, you will enter the kingdom. That is, when your interior and your exterior vibrate at the same frequency, the invisible will have no choice but to manifest itself. This certainty is the coherence between what you hold in your intimacy and what you express in the visible. It's not about praying, but about being. Why isn't this taught? Because true faith doesn't depend on authorities or dogmas. It isn't bought or inherited, but is cultivated in solitude. And that is dangerous for systems that need intermediaries between human beings and their power. In the book of Baruch, forbidden by rabbis and Christians, we read a dialogue between the body and the soul. The body said, "Show me proof of what you hope for." The soul responded, "The proof is what is already vibrated in you, even if you do not understand it." This is a poetic description of quantum physics before its time. The observer collapses the wave function, but to do so, they must trust their vision more than what they perceive, sustaining the invisible pulse beyond all apparent contradiction. The science of this certainty requires not study, but presence. It is not produced, it remains. It is not achieved, it is embodied. And to embody it, one must die to the need to see results before being the cause. As Hugo de Payens, a forgotten Templar sage, wrote, "He who believes after seeing only sustains an echo, but he who vibrates before form forges the world from its core." Vibrational practice. Today, choose something that has not yet happened in your life, not as a desire, but as a seed. Breathe, close your eyes, and imagine not the outcome, but the sensation of someone who already experiences it. How does it feel? What position is your body in? Stay in that state for 5 minutes. Then, throughout the day, every time you remember that longing, don't ask for it. Be someone who already has it. This is the ancient science, the silent word, the secret practice. It's not praying for something to happen, but living as if it were already a reality. Because the quantum field doesn't respond to hope, but to identity. Grasping without intervention. Everything you now perceive with your eyes was first seen without them. It doesn't take a long history to understand this principle, only to remember a forgotten truth. Vision creates when it is not chained to desire. The error of modern visualization lies not in the image, but in the hunger with which it imagines. The supplicant doesn't create. He only perpetuates distance. The true magician visualizes not to obtain, but because he has already assumed that what he observes belongs to him in vibration. Visualizing is not asking the universe, but showing it how it feels to live within what has been decreed. If you supplicate while seeing, you are not creating, but begging in the guise of a creator. And that energy, by nature, excludes, because the vibration of need cancels the vibration of possession. The forgotten instruction of Liber Hermetis. Attributed to the late school of Zosimos of Panopolis, this text contains a veiled teaching for initiates of the greater art. See not with the eye that desires, but with the eye that forms. For what desires lacks, but what forms already carries the seed. The instruction was clear. He who sees from desire does not create, but perpetuates his emptiness. He who sees as a creative act, without attachment, without anxiety, without urgency, becomes a bridge between the invisible and the visible. True visualization is not based on effort, but on attunement. It is not about imagining more strongly, but about entering into the exact frequency of the result, and, from there, feeling it as something natural. You don't force an image, you gently descend into the vibratory state that already contains it. The Wisdom of Codex Paritinus 155. In this hidden manuscript of the Christian Platonic school, an anonymous 3rd century master is quoted. He who prays and does not feel that he already lives, it is not praying. He is denying his inheritance. This master taught that any visualization that stems from lack is a desecration of the divine mind, for the mind was not designed to beg, but to shape. Therefore, the exercise of visualization is not mental, but sensorial. Images that are not felt do not create. They may move for an instant, but they do not establish a structure in the quantum field. Effective visualization occurs when the body acts as if in the presence of what is imagined. The heartbeat changes. The posture changes. The field responds with embodied certainty. Rima. The Hebrew art of remembering the unlived. The ancient Hebrews practiced Rima, a mystery guarded in their mystical circles. It wasn't about visualizing, as in the West, but about remembering what is yet to happen. How can something unlived be remembered? Only if one understands that the soul is not trapped in the timeline, that there is an inner place where everything possible already exists, waiting for a gaze free of doubt to activate it. The Alat manuscript and the gaze without hunger. In this pre-Islamic text, preserved by the hermits of Petra, it is stated, "He who looks with hunger prolongs hunger. He who looks with joy nourishes the form." This sentence summarizes the essential hermetic principle. An image held with joy solidifies. An image held with anxiety fades. The great alchemists visualized with detachment, not to detach themselves from the outcome, but to avoid turning the image into a prison. They did so like someone breathing, without thinking about each inhalation, because for the true creator, vision is a daily act of silent affirmation. Visualizing isn't building something new, but remembering who you are in that already manifested state. It's recognizing yourself in what you already experience on another plane and allowing that reality to imprint itself on this one. What you see internally is a version of yourself calling from a parallel reality, but only if you respond without need, without anxiety, without doubt, can its presence in this timeline collapse. Experiential practice. Today, close your eyes, but don't imagine from a place of lack. Pause. Breathe deeply. Evoke a simple, non-idealized scene. You walking down a street where you have already resolved what you now yearn for. Not a celebration, not a fantasy, just transformed normality. Feel your body. How do you walk? How do you breathe? What no longer worries you? Stay in that scene without exaggerating it. Feel it as usual, because that way it permeates the field without effort, without noise, without hunger. Then, during the day, walk at least 10 steps like someone who has already experienced what they saw. Not as theater, but as vibratory embodiment. The final law. He who visualizes with urgency delays. He who visualizes with certainty models. He who visualizes with silent gratitude has already created it. Episode 4. You don't seek, you emanate. The universe doesn't give you what you yearn for, but rather responds to what you emanate. This isn't a new idea or a modern self-help formula, but a vibrational law inscribed in the most ancient foundations of spiritual thought. However, over time, this wisdom has been misinterpreted. It has been said that you attract what you are, as if you were a passive magnet waiting for reality to be granted to you. But this is only part of the truth. You didn't come to this world to attract. You came to project. You project constantly, even without realizing it. You don't need conscious intention to do so. Your mere existence already radiates a frequency that shapes the matter around you. That frequency is not born from your desires or your words, but from your inner identity, from what you truly hold as a deep vibration. You are like a lit lamp that shapes the environment with the quality of its light. Authentic Kabbalah, the kind hidden in the most enigmatic passages of the Zohar, teaches us that the world does not happen in front of us, but from within us. In the tractate Arakia, one of the least explored texts of the Zohar, it is stated, "The human being who discovers his hidden image is like a fountain that does not collect water, but generates it." That hidden image is your deepest essence, your original vibration, which acts as an organizing field of reality. Just as the fountain creates water, the soul creates its environment. It does not collect it from chance, it generates it from within. In the minor Kabbalistic text known as the Cipher of Ziniyuda, it is explained that the universe is like a perfect, but inverted, mirror. It does not reflect your external appearance, but the energetic structure of your interior. What you reject outside is what you have not recognized within. What you celebrate outside is what begins to flourish within you. And what is repeated in your environment is not a lesson, but a sign that you are projecting the same underlying image. Projection is not a metaphor. It is literal. Every sustained judgment, thought, or emotion organizes the forms, behaviors, people, and events around you. Whoever radiates guilt structures a world that returns a signal of punishment. Whoever radiates insecurity attracts situations of rejection. This is not because the universe is unfair, but because it faithfully responds to the energetic image you emit, not to the words you speak. The Setra Yasar, attributed to an esoteric lineage of Israelite sages, teaches that the world was created by fervently held internal images. These are not external images, but the invisible figures that the soul constructs through the imagination. Not a fanciful imagination, but imagination as the creative power par excellence. Whoever does not imagine, does not create. And whoever imagines out of fear, projects worlds that overwhelm them. Herein lies the key. Imagination is not passive, it is structured energy. Therefore, according to some apocryphal Gospels, Jesus did not perform miracles through will, but through vision. In the Gospel of Inner Wisdom, collected in fragments from the Coptic codices of Hermit, we find this phrase. "I did not say to the storm, stop. I only saw the calm sea, and the storm obeyed." Seeing is projecting. True spiritual authority does not impose forcefully, but rather emits an image so pure that the world cannot resist reflecting it. However, most people do not see clearly, but rather with internal interference. And this interference distorts the projection. You visualize prosperity, but project fear. You declare love, but emit defense. You long for healing, but hold resentment. The field around you responds to your vibration, not your words. The mirror of the world doesn't choose which part of you to reflect. It simply responds to what you give it. The ancient school of inner mirrors, an extinct mystical tradition from northern Anatolia, held that every emotion acts like a lens. Hate bends the image. Desire fragments it. Fear distorts it. Only neutral contemplation can project without distortion. Therefore, their teachings were not about wishing, but about purifying the lens. Because they knew that creation is not a matter of effort, but of clarity. Integrated experiential practice. Do this. Choose a conflict or situation that recurs in your life. Don't analyze it. Observe it like an image reflected in a mirror. Then ask yourself, what part of me is being projected there? Don't blame yourself or run away. Just recognize, this is also me, emitting without realizing it. Now, without trying to solve it, imagine what that same situation would be like if you projected from your highest part. Not from what would be better, but from how everything would be reorganized if you vibrated at peace. Feel that new version, and during the day, every time the old pattern appears, remind yourself, this isn't happening to me. I'm emitting this. The next time you want to change something in your life, don't ask yourself, what should I attract? Ask yourself, what should I begin to project? The magnet waits. The projector organizes. You are not here to attract what you lack. You are here to radiate what you already are. The emotional mind and the energy field. Your emotion is the vibrational architecture of your life. It is not what you think, nor what you affirm or desire, but what you feel deeply and continually hold. That sustained emotion is the raw material from which the universe builds your reality. It is not punishment or judgment. It is vibrational obedience. The emotional mind does not think in words, but it does dictate how matter behaves. It is an invisible, vibrant field, known in India as the lower manas, in Persian esotericism as nafs, and in some Gnostic gospels as the place where forms are woven before the world. It is sustained emotion, which becomes an internal atmosphere, which shapes your environment without uttering a single word. In a fragment of the Ashkelon Codex, found in 1923, we read, "Emotion is the ink of the soul. With it you write on the flesh of the world. He who sustains anger draws with fire. He who sustains joy sculpts with air. Each sustained emotion imprints a pattern. That pattern not only defines your internal experience, but also the opportunities that appear, the relationships that manifest, the health you experience." The most common mistake is trying to control the mind through logical thinking. But logic doesn't create. Emotion does. The quantum field responds to vibrational coherence, not to ideas. The emotional mind is like an invisible projector. Even if you don't think, even if you don't speak, it emits incessantly. And what it emits is organized, not immediately, but inevitably. The ancient Egyptian sages of Kashmir taught that holding an emotion for 42 breaths generated an etheric seal capable of altering the vibration of the environment. The fire quieted, the air thickened, the body responded, but only if the emotion was pure. That is, without contradiction, joy without expectation, gratitude without demand, love without control. These were the true creative forces. These were not explosive emotions, but vibrations held with awareness. They said, what you do not hold in peace does not transform. What you hold with purity becomes sacred geometry. Matter does not obey the force. It obeys the one emitting from the center. If you emit anxiety while visualizing prosperity, the field becomes disorganized. If you emit guilt while affirming freedom, the world responds to the guilty vibration. This is not about morality. It is about energetic precision. This was also known to ancient Armenian mysticism, preserved in the chants of Mount Ararat. One of them sings, "He who commands from his emotion needs no name. The stones fall into place." Emotion is not weakness. It is language. It is command. He who weeps with resentment commands confusion. He who vibrates in unconditional love, even in silence, reorganizes his environment. Every emotion has a tone. That tone is recorded in the auric field and, from there, shapes reality. Sustained fear generates obstacles. Sustained guilt generates loss. Sustained gratitude generates expansion. Not by magic, but by vibration. Observation practice. Today, don't try to change your thoughts. Just observe yourself. Every hour, ask yourself, what am I feeling without realizing it? Do it like someone tuning an instrument, not to judge, but to listen to your tone. When you recognize it, choose a different emotion, not with effort, but with presence. If you notice tension, sit, breathe, and remember a moment, even a brief one, when you felt peace. Recreate it. Don't imagine it, live it. Stay there for 5 minutes. That, and nothing else, will begin to reorganize your field. During the day, practice changing your emotional tone at least 3 times. It doesn't matter if you don't completely succeed. The important thing is that you begin to direct the vibrational language that your body and soul are already speaking, even without you. Your vibrational emotion shapes the structure of reality. The universe doesn't respond to what you desire. It reflects what you emit. This isn't a recent teaching or a motivational phrase, but a vibrational law inscribed in the most ancient foundations of spiritual thought. However, this wisdom has been misinterpreted. It's been said that you attract what you are, as if you were a passive magnet waiting for the world to grant you what you yearn for. But that view is incomplete. You are not here to attract. You are here to project. You project constantly, even if you are not aware of it. You don't need intention to emit. Your very existence radiates a frequency that organizes the matter around you. And that frequency is not born from what you desire or your words, but from what you hold internally as your identity, as your essential vibration. You are like a lit lamp. The quality of your light defines the shadows it casts around it. Kabbalah, the authentic Kabbalah, not the popularized Kabbalah, hidden in the deepest passages of the Zohar, teaches that the world does not happen in front of you, but from within you. In Arakia, one of the least explored treatises of the Zohar, it is stated, "The person who has discovered his hidden image is like a fountain. He does not collect water, he creates it." That hidden image is your deepest essence, your original vibration, which is projected as an organizing field. The fountain does not attract water, it generates it. So too, the soul generates its environment. It does not collect it from cosmic chance. In Cipher of Zini Yuda, another text in the Kabbalistic corpus, it is explained that the universe is a perfect mirror, but inverted. It does not reflect your outward appearance, but the energetic structure of your inner world. What you reject outside is what you have not yet embraced inside. What you celebrate outside is what begins to resonate within you. What is repeated in your life is not a punitive lesson, but a sign. You are projecting the same base image. Projection is not a metaphor, it's literal. Every judgment, thought, or sustained emotion comes from within you and organizes the behavior of forms, people, and events. Whoever emits blame unknowingly organizes a world that confronts them. Whoever emits insecurity provokes rejection, not because the universe is harsh, but because it responds to the vibratory image emitted, not to verbalized prayer. The Secherei Yasar, attributed to an esoteric lineage of Israelite sages, teaches that the world was created from inner images sustained by fire. It doesn't refer to external images, but to the invisible forms that the soul creates through its imagination. And not to imagination as fantasy, but as an essential creative act. Whoever does not imagine, does not create. And whoever imagines from fear projects worlds that limit them. Here lies the key. Imagination is not passive. It is a structured, energetic emission. Therefore, according to the hidden Gospels, Jesus did not perform miracles through imposition, but through vision. In the Gospel of Inner Wisdom, fragmented among the Coptic codices of Hermit, this phrase is recorded. "I did not say to the storm, 'Stop.' I only saw the calm sea, and the storm obeyed." Seeing is projecting. True spiritual authority does not impose with force, but rather emits an image so pure that the world cannot oppose it. But most do not see clearly. They perceive with interference. And this interference is what contaminates the projection. You visualize prosperity, but emit fear. You declare love, but vibrate from a defensive position. You yearn for healing, but hold resentment. And the energetic field, obedient, reflects that vibration, not your words. The mirror does not choose which part of you to show. It reflects what you give it. The ancient school of inner mirrors, an extinct mystical tradition from northern Anatolia, taught that every emotion is a lens. Anger bends the image. Desire fragments it. Fear distorts it. Only neutral contemplation allows for clear projection. Therefore, their practices were not about desiring, but about purifying the lens. Because they knew that creation is not effort. It is clarity. Experiential application. Choose a repetitive conflict or situation in your life. Don't analyze it. Observe it as if it were an image reflected in a mirror. Now ask yourself, what part of me is projecting there? Don't judge yourself. Don't run away. Just recognize, this is also me, emitting without realizing it. Now, without needing to resolve it, visualize what that same situation would be like if you projected from your highest part. It's not about imagining the ideal, but rather visualizing how it would reorganize if you vibrated at peace. Feel that version. And throughout the day, every time the old pattern arises, remember, this isn't happening to me. I'm emitting it. The next time you want to transform something in your life, don't ask yourself, what should I attract? Ask yourself, what should I begin to project? The magnet waits. The projector commands. You are not here to attract what is missing, but to emanate what you already are. The emotional mind and the order of matter. Your energetic field organizes matter. Emotion is the vibrational architecture of your life. Not what you think, not what you desire, not what you affirm, but what you feel deeply and hold consistently. That is the raw material from which the universe builds your environment. It is not punishment or judgment. It is energetic coherence. The emotional mind is not expressed in words, but it dictates how matter responds. It is an invisible organ, a vibrating field. It is what the Indian sages called the lower manas, what the Persian mystics called the nafs, and what in certain apocryphal texts of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene is described as the place where forms are woven before the world. These are not just momentary emotions. Sustained emotion becomes an internal atmosphere. It shapes space without words. In a barely translated passage from the Ashkelon Codex, a Gnostic fragment discovered in 1923, we read, "Emotion is the ink of the soul. With it you write on the flesh of the world. Whoever holds anger draws with fire. Whoever holds joy sculpts with air." This isn't a metaphor. It's spiritual physics. Every sustained emotion imprints a pattern, and that pattern affects not only you, but also how your environment responds to you. The opportunities that appear, the people you approach, the health you manifest. Therefore, the most common mistake when trying to control the mind is to focus only on logical thinking. Logic doesn't create. Emotion does. The quantum field doesn't respond to ideas. It responds to coherent vibrations. The emotional mind acts like an invisible projector, constantly emitting, even in silence. It's not that things change immediately, but they inevitably do. In the ancient Egyptian school of Kashmir, it was taught that an emotion sustained for 42 breaths generated an etheric seal, capable of altering the vibrational disposition of the environment. The fire was stilled, the air was charged, the body responded. But only if the emotion was pure. Joy without expectation. Gratitude without request. Love without the need for control. That was true creative energy. It wasn't about intense emotions, but about vibrations sustained with full awareness. They said, what you don't hold in peace doesn't transform. What you hold with purity becomes sacred geometry. Matter doesn't obey the one who forces it, but the one who emits from its center. When you project anxiety, even if you visualize prosperity, the field becomes disorganized. When you hold guilt, even if you affirm freedom, matter responds to the guilty pattern. It's not morality. It's vibrational precision. The Armenian mystics of Mount Ararat also knew this, as they sang, "He who commands from his emotion needs no naming. The stones fall into place by themselves." Emotion is not weakness. It is language. It is command. He who cries in anger creates disorder. He who laughs with resentment creates confusion. But whoever vibrates in unconditional love, even in silence, reorganizes the laws of their environment. Every emotion has a tone. That tone is recorded in the auric field, and through that field, it manifests in reality. A sustained field of fear generates blockage. A field of guilt loss. A field of gratitude, expansion, not by magic, but by vibration. The emotional mind is already functioning. You don't have to learn to use it. You are already using it. The problem is that you do so without awareness. You live in unresolved emotional states. You react from unrecognized wounds, and you feel without observing yourself. Thus, you project distorted patterns that repeat themselves, not by destiny, but by unconscious emission. Experiential application. Today, don't try to change your thoughts. Just observe yourself. Every hour, ask yourself, what am I feeling without realizing it? Do it like a musician tuning their instrument, not to judge themselves, but to listen to their tone. Then, when you identify it, choose to hold a different emotion, not with effort, but with presence. For example, if you sense tension, sit down, breathe, and remember a moment, even a brief one, when you felt peace. Don't imagine it. Relive it. Stay there for 5 minutes. That alone will begin to reorder your field. During the day, practice changing your emotional tone at least 3 times. It doesn't matter if you don't completely succeed. The essential thing is that you begin to direct the vibrational language that your body and soul are already speaking for you. Episode 5. Unchained. The ancient mystery of clairvoyance and magicians of silence. Nothing moves in the universe without a vibratory cause. Nothing manifests without a sustained emotional core. The word can declare, the mind can design, but it is emotion that gives the order. No matter how refined your thought is, if the emotion that sustains it is fragmented, the universe does not execute what you think, but what you feel with totality. Emotion is not an effect, it is the original language. Everything created responds to it, because before form there was vibration, and before vibration there was emotional intention. This is how the ancients understood it. But this knowledge was hidden, not because it was false, but because it was dangerous to systems that prefer a submissive human being to a sovereign one. The Book of Enoch, excluded from the biblical canon and preserved in Ethiopic and Slavic codices, reveals in its deepest passages a cosmology where the Watchers, the fallen angels, were not expelled out of pride, but because they taught humans the secrets of heaven, the power to name, to see, to order, and to feel with consciousness. In the Ethiopic Enoch, chapter 69, verse 14, we read, "And to the sons of men was given the art of moving the earth by their emotion and ordering the stars by the vibration of their soul." This passage, omitted for centuries, describes a spiritual technology, sustained emotion as a force that alters the structure of the world. Emotion was not seen as weakness, but as a driving force. The sons of light were not special beings, but humans who had learned to govern their emotion like a sacred language. They did not repress it, but aligned it, preserved it, and transformed it into pure will. The Watcher's secret was not technical knowledge, but the vibrational transmission of an internal state. That is why they were persecuted. That is why their teachings were banned. Because a human being who understands that feeling coherently is ordering matter ceases to need salvation and becomes a creator. This was also known to the sages of the pre-esoteric school of Ran, known as the builders of the warm word. Their manuscripts, preserved in alabaster fragments engraved with thermal symbols, affirmed that each emotion sustained at 40 beats per minute modified the vibrational pattern of the environment. A central inscription reads, "He who maintains joy in the presence of chaos is master of the plane." It wasn't about ignoring the world, but about not yielding to the tone. Because the quantum field responds neither to justice nor injustice, but to emission. And when the emotion is pure, without resistance, the entire universe bends to imitate it. Why is it so difficult to sustain a heightened emotion? Because we haven't learned to feel it first. We've been trained to think from trauma and then feel from thought. Emotion has become an echo, not a source. And as long as it's an echo, it's weak. But when it regains its place as a primary force, it becomes a command. A heightened emotion is not euphoria. It is vibrational stability. Peace is not passivity. It is coherence. Joy is not enthusiasm. It is certainty. When the body vibrates with an emotion that doesn't depend on circumstances, It begins to emit a constant geometric pattern, and that pattern is imprinted in matter. According to the second book of Enoch, the sons of light were not defined by their knowledge, but by their ability to emit emotions that reshaped their environment. They were not priests or chosen ones, but conscious tuners of their field. Some called them dangerous, others divine. But all knew that, where they stood, the dense became light, the closed opened, and the sick began to remember its original design. Experiential application. Today, choose a single emotion you want to use as a command. Don't impose it, feel it, inhabit it. Perhaps it's peace, gratitude, or dignity. It doesn't matter which, but how deeply you can hold it for 5 minutes. Sit in silence and breathe into that emotion, not as an exercise, but as if you were tasked with holding it for others, as if your vibration could reorganize the space. Then step outside. Don't speak, don't justify, but hold that emotion like an invisible torch. What happens in the next few hours will not be a coincidence. Thinking organizes, visualizing structures, but only feeling with presence organizes. Because the universe is a mirror of sustained emotion. Feeling is a guide. Nothing moves in the universe without a vibratory cause. Nothing manifests without an emotional core to sustain it. The word can declare, the mind can design, but it is emotion that issues the final command. No matter how refined your thought, if the emotion that underpins it is fragmented, the universe does not respond to what you think, but to what you feel with totality. Emotion is not a simple effect. It is the original language. Everything created responds to it, because before form existed vibration, and before vibration, an emotional intention. This is how the ancients understood it. This knowledge was not hidden because it was false, but because it was powerful. Too powerful for systems that preferred a dependent human being to one aware of their sovereignty. The Book of Enoch, excluded from the biblical canon and preserved in Ethiopian and Slavic codices, reveals a distinct cosmology in its most veiled passages. In it, the Watchers, angels who descended to earth, were not punished for arrogance, but because they shared with humans the secrets of heaven, the power to name, to see, to command, and to feel with conscience. In the Ethiopic Book of Enoch, chapter 69, verse 14, we read, "And to the sons of men was given the art of moving the earth with their emotion and ordering the stars with the vibration of their soul." This passage, forgotten for centuries, describes a spiritual technology, emotion sustained as a force capable of altering the structure of the world. Emotion was not considered weakness, but a driving force. The children of light were not extraordinary beings, but humans who had learned to govern their emotions like one who masters a sacred language. They did not repress them. They aligned them, conserved them, and transformed them into pure will. The true secret of the Watchers was not technical knowledge, but the vibratory transmission of an inner state. That's why his teachings were banned, because a human being who understands that feeling coherently is ordering matter no longer needs salvation. He becomes a creator. This was also known to the sages of the pre-esoteric school of Ran, known as the builders of the warm word. Their manuscripts, barely preserved in alabaster fragments engraved with thermal symbols, affirmed that any emotion sustained at 40 beats per minute modified the vibrational pattern of the environment. One of their central inscriptions read, "He who maintains joy in the presence of chaos is master of the plane." It wasn't about ignoring reality, but rather about not yielding to the emotional tone, because the quantum field doesn't respond to justice or injustice. It responds to the vibration emitted. And when that emotion is pure, without resistance, the entire universe adjusts to reflect it. So why is it so difficult to sustain a heightened emotion? Because we haven't learned to inhabit it. We've been conditioned to think from the trauma, and then to feel from that thought. The emotion has become an echo, not a source. As long as it remains an echo, it will be weak. But when it regains its place as a primal force, it transforms into a command. A heightened emotion is not euphoria, it is vibrational stability. Peace is not passivity, it is coherence. Joy is not simple enthusiasm, it is certainty. When the body vibrates with an emotion that does not depend on external circumstances, it begins to emit a constant geometric pattern, and that pattern is imprinted on matter. According to the second book of Enoch, the children of light were not defined by their knowledge, but by their ability to emit emotions that reshaped their environment. They were not priests, nor chosen ones. They were conscious tuners of their inner field. Some considered them dangerous, others sublime. But all knew that where they stood, what was dense became light, what was closed opened, and what was wounded began to remember its original design. Experiential application woven into the narrative. Today, choose a single emotion you want to use as an inner guide. Don't force it. Feel it. Inhabit it. Perhaps it's peace, perhaps gratitude, or dignity. It doesn't matter which you choose, but how deeply you can hold it for 5 minutes. Sit in silence. Breathe into that emotion, not as a simple exercise, but as if your vibration could reorder the world you inhabit, as if your stability were a gift to all those around you. Then, get up and continue your day without explanations, without justifying yourself, but holding that emotion like an invisible torch. What happens in the next few hours will not be a coincidence. Thinking organizes, visualizing structures, but only feeling with presence organizes. Because the universe is, in the end, a faithful mirror of sustained emotion. Episode 6. Being in energy. Nothing in the universe moves without a vibratory cause. Nothing manifests without a sustained emotional core. The word can declare, the mind can design, but it is emotion that gives the order. It doesn't matter how refined your thought is if the emotion that sustains it is fragmented. The universe doesn't execute what you think. It executes what you fully feel. Emotion is not an effect. It is the primordial language. Everything created responds to it, because before form there was vibration, and before vibration, emotional intention. This is how the ancients understood it. But this knowledge was hidden, not because it was erroneous, but because it was inconvenient for systems that preferred a supplicant human being to a sovereign one. The Book of Enoch, excluded from the biblical canon and preserved in Ethiopian and Slavic codices, reveals in its most veiled passages an astonishing cosmology. In it, the Watchers, those angels who descended, did not fall out of pride, but because they taught humans celestial secrets, the power to name, to observe clearly, to order with conscience, and to feel with intention. In the Ethiopic Enoch, chapter 69, verse 14, we read, "And to the sons of men was given the art of moving the earth with their emotion and ordering the stars with the vibration of their soul." This passage, omitted for centuries, describes what we might call a spiritual technology, sustained emotion as a force capable of altering the structure of the world. Emotion was not seen as weakness, but as the very engine of reality. The children of light were not supernatural beings. They were humans who had learned to govern their emotion as one governs a sacred tongue. They did not repress it. They aligned it. They preserved it. They transformed it into pure will. The true secret of the Watchers was not technical. It was vibratory. They transmitted an internal state, not formulas. That's why they were silenced. That's why their teachings were hidden. Because a human being who understands that feeling coherently is ordering matter stops seeking external salvation. He becomes a creator. This was also known to the sages of the pre-esoteric school of Ran, known as the builders of the warm word. Their manuscripts, barely preserved in alabaster fragments engraved with thermal symbols, affirmed that each emotion sustained at 40 beats per minute modified the vibrational pattern of the environment. A central inscription reads, "He who maintains joy in the presence of chaos is master of the plane." It wasn't about ignoring the world, but about not yielding to the inner tone. Because the quantum field responds neither to justice nor injustice, but to vibrational emission. And when the emotion is pure, without resistance, the entire universe bends to imitate it. But why is it so difficult to sustain a heightened emotion? Because we haven't learned to inhabit it. We have been trained to think from trauma and then feel from that thought. The emotion has become an echo, not a source. And as long as it is an echo, it will be weak. But when it regains its place as a primal force, it transforms into a creative command. A heightened emotion is not euphoria. It is vibrational stability. Peace is not passivity. It is coherence. Joy is not enthusiasm. It is certainty. When the body vibrates with an emotion that is independent of external circumstances, it begins to emit a constant geometric pattern. And that pattern is imprinted in matter. The children of light, according to the second book of Enoch, were not defined by their knowledge, but by their ability to emit emotions that transformed their environment. They were not priests. They were not chosen. They were conscious harmonizers of their field. Some called them dangerous, others divine. But all knew that, where they stood, what was dense became light. What was closed opened. What was sick began to remember its original design. Experiential application. Today, choose a single emotion you wish to use as a command. Don't impose it. Feel it. Inhabit it. Maybe it's peace. Maybe it's gratitude. Maybe it's dignity. It doesn't matter which one, but how deeply you can hold it for 5 minutes. Sit in silence. Breathe into that emotion. Not as an exercise, as if your task were to hold it for others, as if your vibration alone could reorganize space. Then, go out into the world. Don't explain. Don't justify. But hold that emotion like an invisible torch. What happens in the next few hours will not be a coincidence. Thinking organizes, visualizing structures, but only feeling with presence orders. Because the universe is a faithful mirror of sustained emotion. What energy emits is the truth. Nothing in the universe happens by chance. In a cosmos that breathes consciousness, nothing happens without reason. In a field where every particle responds to vibrations, life is not a succession of random events. It is a mirror, an echo, a multilayered message. Whoever does not heed the gentler signals will be corrected by the stronger ones, because the universe does not impose, but neither does it repeat in vain. The correction of the universe is not a punishment, but a reorientation, and that reorientation always begins with whispers, a sensation, an intuition, a slight delay, a gentle rejection, a closed door. It is not to deny you passage, but to remind you that you are vibrating off the path of your soul. The ancients knew that the universe does not remain silent. They called it the great invisible interlocutor. In the Templar tradition of the now extinct branch of St. Gervasius, it was taught that stones also have a voice and that the winds say no when your feet step where they shouldn't. This wasn't superficial mysticism, but a profound recognition that everything in creation is alive, conscious, and attentive to the flow of the human soul. Signs appear when the inner self has stopped talking to itself. They are external reflections of internal imbalance, and they show not only what is wrong, but also what has been forgotten, what has been blocked, what is being asked for without sustaining the corresponding vibration. Synchronicity is the language of alignment. When something appears just at the moment you need it, it's not luck. It's that your vibrational field has reached such a state of clarity that the universe responds immediately. But when the signs become chaotic, repetitive, dense, or painful, it's not because you have been forgotten, but because you have stopped listening from the soul. In the Gospel of the Dry Ones, a Coptic text never canonized and fragmented into pottery vessels, an anonymous sage teaches, "He who does not listen to the rain will be overtaken by the storm. He who does not listen to the wind will lose his roof, but he who hears the creaking of the wood will be saved before the fire." This passage clearly describes the way the universe communicates. It begins in the small, and if not heard, it increases the vibration until the message becomes impossible to ignore. But why don't we listen? Because we have been trained to rationalize everything, to ignore intuition, to justify emotions, to label coincidences as irrelevant. Thus, the soul stops speaking, but the universe does not. The universe continues to shout through failures, repetitions, pain, missed opportunities, and awkward silences. It does so not out of cruelty, but out of love for your expansion. The Vedic wisdom, primordial and preserved in the Erasa letters, a set of solar tablets that have not been fully deciphered, suggests that every human being has a field of signals within them. Every strange, repeated, or uncomfortable event is an early warning of misalignment. One of the tablets reads, "Where you fail 3 times, you are not being attacked. You are being stopped so that you remember who sent you." It's not that the universe wants to stop you from moving forward. It's that it knows you're walking on the wrong frequency, heading in the wrong direction. Even the people who enter your life and then abruptly leave are messages, reflections of what's inside you. The same goes for sudden losses, persistent delays, and seemingly absurd falls. Everything speaks when you remain silent. Experiential application. Today, stop and observe 3 things. An event that constantly repeats itself in your life, a feeling you often ignore, a message you've received more than once in different ways. Don't analyze them, just write them down. Then ask yourself, what part of my field is being corrected by these messages? Listen without excuses. If it hurts, don't run away. If it repeats itself, be grateful. If you still don't understand, remain silent until the signal transforms into understanding. And when you understand, don't just change your mind, change your frequency. Because signals don't disappear just because you know, they disappear when they're no longer needed. The universe doesn't shout for no reason. It doesn't repeat itself out of inertia. It doesn't deny without offering another way. It only shows you, with a precision you don't yet understand, the exact place where your vibration is contradicting your soul. Episode 7. Fear as the creator of inner chaos. How to deactivate the programmed mind. Hell is not a place underground. It is a vibrational construction lodged in the invisible folds of the soul. It is not erected by a demon, but by fear. Every time you act from unconscious self-protection, every time you repress your expression for fear of judgment, every time you silence a truth for fear of rejection or choose repetition for fear of the new, fear writes another line of the script that you will later call reality. There is no energy more obeyed on this plane than fear, because it is one of the first vibrations the soul assimilates upon incarnation. But it is not born as an enemy, but as a warning, as a mechanism of perception. The problem is not feeling it, but not recognizing when it has stopped protecting you and begun to rule you. In the Muresu texts, clay tablets that survived the collapse of Nippur in the 5th century BC, fear is described as the voice that takes over the throne when the king falls asleep. A perfect metaphor. The soul, legitimate sovereign of the body, loses its place when fear, disguised as prudence, makes the decisions. It doesn't shout, it doesn't impose, it only whispers, "Better not change, and if you fail, it will be worse later." And that whisper, when repeated, becomes vibrational programming. Fear doesn't need to be explicit to operate. It resides in neutrality, in reasonable excuses, in perfectionism, in procrastination. Its architecture is subtle. It builds prisons without bars, invisible walls that you yourself reinforce with your habits and silences. The most tragic thing is that fear doesn't require violence, only repetition. The programming of fear is not undone by fighting it, but by withdrawing the vibratory power you have unwittingly granted it. Because fear does not create on its own, it only does so when you feed it with your constant attention. In the Gospel of Dark Clarity, a Gnostic text transmitted orally for centuries, a master warns, "Do not fear fear, but do not invite it to your table. If you give it bread, it will ask for a house. If you give it a house, it will ask for form." Fear becomes form when you give it energy. It becomes life when it shapes your behavior. And the quantum field, obedient, transforms that vibration into experiences that confirm it. Losses, rejections, repetitions, confinements. That is why it is said that fear does not attract what is feared, but rather projects it. The silent masters of the Ethiopian tradition of Aksum knew this principle. Their word for fear was requet, which also meant unconfronted inner shadow. In their songs of fire, vibrational rituals, not liturgies, they intoned, "He who sees his fear and does not flee, awakens the guardian who slept behind." That guardian is none other than the higher self, which has waited patiently for you to stop acting from the wound and instead act from consciousness. Practical exercise, rewriting the script. Today, sit down and write. What recent decisions have I made out of fear? What has that vibration created in my life? Don't run away. Don't make excuses. Observe it as an architect. Then, choose one of those decisions, the smallest one, and do the opposite. Not to defy fear, but to deactivate its vibrational hold. Walk as if you don't have it. Speak as if it was never necessary. Decide as one who remembers that the soul, not fear, must sit on the throne. Do it once and watch the field respond. Fear is not your enemy. It is your misinterpreted reflection. Hell is not a place, but a vibrational field sustained by years of survival, disguised as sanity. Deactivate it, and the prison will dissolve. The mind is the key, the final door, and the beginning of return. Everything begins within you, not in others, nor in facts, nor in the heavens, nor in the gods. Everything is born and reborn within you, not in the surface that reasons, but in that silent core that vibrates, imagines, sustains, and shapes tirelessly. The mind is the final door because it has always been the first cause. It is the root of the verb, the mold of emotion, the origin of the vibratory pattern that the universe returns with precise fidelity. Therefore, the reality you experience is not an isolated event, but the exact reflection of what you were before you saw. What you perceive is already past. What you are now is what is to come. It is not punishment. It is architecture. It is the law of return. And this law is not based on morality, but on vibration. What you emit with your mind, sustained by your identity and your emotions, returns to you, not as a simple idea, but as a concrete form, not as a judgment, but as an exact response. In the Akinja writings, an ancient mystical collection of sacred geometries found in the eastern deserts of Anatolia, it is stated, "The mind is the brush of the soul. What you draw in the field returns as canvas on your body." This principle was the basis of their vision of the cosmos. There is no external God who designs your life. There is an internal design that your mind projects onto the quantum canvas. In the Zordak, one of the veiled texts of the original Kabbalistic tradition, it is taught that the soul shoots out thoughts like arrows, and that each one returns with the same light or shadow with which it was sent. This is not superstition, but rather an understanding that every thought held is an instruction to the universe. And the universe does not choose who to respond to. It simply reflects, returns, obeys. If you constantly think about loss, loss will return. If you imagine expansion from certainty, expansion will manifest. If you act from lack, lack will multiply. Not because life is hard, but because the field cannot form what it does not receive. Therefore, everything begins in the mind. But not in the mind that calculates, but in the one that vibrates. In the mind that imagines in silence. In the mind that feels an image as real and holds it as true, even if the world insists otherwise. In the Book of Anisil, a lost Chaldean text cited only by the Ashan mystic Altamu, we read, "Every thought is a vessel. If you fill it with certainty, it will be a pitcher of light. If you fill it with doubt, it will break before it reaches you." That teaching sums up the end of the path. The mind is the potter. The universe only fires the clay. And what happens when you remember this? Life ceases to be something that happens to you and becomes something that emanates from you. You no longer need to fight, convince, or plead. You only need to organize your inner world. That is the final door. There is no other. When you understand that reality is not a reaction to the external, but a reflection of the internal, everything changes. You no longer expect miracles. You become the space where miracles happen. Yes, the mind creates, but it also reaps. And the law of return has no shortcuts. If you sow limiting images, confusing emotions, empty words, and misaligned actions, the return will be confusion. If you sow coherence, presence, vibrational alignment, and clear vision, the return will be peace. And peace, more than happiness, is the symptom of having remembered who you are. Take this into your life, experience it. Stop today and observe your life as if it were a garden. What have you sown? What thoughts were soil? What emotions watered your interior? What actions were pruning, and which were abandonment? Don't judge yourself. Just recognize. This I thought. This I felt. This I sustained. Now, choose a new seed. Not a phrase, but a complete image. An internal state. Sow it. Not forcefully, but consistently. Just 10 minutes a day. Don't declare it. Inhabit it. Experience it as if it were already there. Do this for a week, and you will see the return begin. Because the law does not fail. Just wait. Your mind is the creator. What you hold in it becomes your heaven or your confusion. Everything you project comes back. The universe doesn't forget. The mind doesn't rest. And life doesn't invent. It only responds.